Section 2.9 is percents. I can solve percent problems using proportions, and I can solve percent problems using the percent equation. Those are our learning targets and what we're shooting for here. Some big ideas for this section. Problems involving percents can be solved using either proportions or the percent equation. If a percent is written as a fraction, a proportion can be used to solve a percent problem. If we look at the take note on page 137, here it gives us a percent proportion. We can represent A is P percent of B using the percent proportion. In the proportion, B is the base, like our total that we start with, and A is the part of the base. It can be more or less, but it's where we go from our base. So A over B equals P over 100. One other thing here is a lot of times A is or is A and of B. So kind of little key things to point out there. So it's kind of is over of A over B. Example 1 here, we're going to use the percent proportion to find what percent of 56 is 42. So if we look here, we started off with 56. 56 is our base. And the part is A. That's where we went from. We started with 56, went to 42. So I'm going to have A over B equals P over 100. So again, it's part over base equals P for percent. And that percent is over 100. Percent literally translates to like divided by 100. Cent is 100. So percents are always over 100. We can plug in what we know here. A is 42. B is 56. We're looking for what percent, so P is our missing piece, and the 100 always stays because percents are always over 100. Now, I have two ratios set equal to each other, so I can solve here by taking cross products. My cross products are equal to each other, so I take my cross products and set them equal to each other. We cross multiply. Simplify both expressions before we can solve, so on the left side I multiply, on the right side I multiply. Now I can start moving from one side to the next. My P is being multiplied. I divide to get rid of that. And P is going to be 75%. And since we're looking for percent, we label it as percent. Now feel free to pause here and give this a try if you'd like. What percent of 90 is 54? So again, our base is our 90. That's where we started. And here's our proportion. 54 is our part. That's where we went. So we started with 90, went to 54. So 54 over 90 equals, we're looking for percent over 100. Again, we have a proportion here, two ratios set equal to each other. We can solve it by cross multiplying and using our cross products. We can set those two cross products equal to each other. Simplify both sides. Left side is as simple as I can get it now, and so is my right side. Now I can solve. My variable is being multiplied, so we get rid of the multiplication by dividing. That's our inverse operation. And P is going to be 60. And that, again, is a percent. Take note on 138, here's our percent equation. We can represent A is P percent of B using the percent equation. Here, A is part of our base B. So again, A is the part, and B is our base. A is means equals P percent is just our symbol here. Of means times B. So here A is P percent of B translates from English to mathematics straightforward. We plug in what we know. So what percent? P percent, since we're looking for percent, of means times 40, is means equals 2.5. Again, 40 here is our base. That's what we started with, and then we changed it to be 2.5. Right now, to solve, my variable's being multiplied by 40. So I'm going to divide. Whatever I do to one side, I do to both. And I get 0.0625. This is my decimal. Now, I need to switch it to a percent. And when we move it to a percent, we multiply by 100 and write it with 2 decimal places moved. And that's because P percent is the same as P over 100. So I can multiply both sides by 100. And P is going to be 6.25%. I think about it like percent is like cents, and decimals are like dollars. So if I have 0.06 cents written as a decimal, I can rewrite, like as dollars, I can rewrite it as 6 cents. Okay, percent. And decimals is like dollars. So that's one way you can remember which way your decimal goes, but it's 2 places because P over 100 is the exact same thing as P percent. So we have to switch from our decimal there into a percent. We can do that by multiplying by 100 or moving our decimal 2 places. 6.25 labeled as percent. Now feel free to pause here and give this a try if you'd like. What percent, so P percent, because that's the part we're looking for, of means times 84, is means equals 63. Again, this is our base, what we started with, and it changed to be 63. That's our part. My variable right now is being multiplied, so I get rid of multiplication by dividing. P percent is going to be 0.75. So again, to get rid of my percent sign, I'm going to multiply by 100 on both sides. My percent sign and my 100 cancel out because P percent is the same as P over 100. So when I multiply by 100, all I have left there is my variable. And on the right side, I get 75, label it as percent. So what percent of 84 is 63? 75%. Check. Does your answer make sense? 0.75% is a very, very small amount. Okay, that wouldn't have made sense. So 75%. Don't forget we have to move our percent sign to the other side so that we can label it as percent, and we do that by multiplying by 100. In example 3, a dress shirt that normally costs $38.50 is on sale for 30% off. What is the sales price of the shirt? Our sale price. We have 30% off, which means we're going to take that part away. So there's 2 different ways that we can solve this problem. The first way is to figure out how much money we saved and then subtract that from our total. So figure out our savings, and then we take the total price it started with minus how much we're saving. And in order to do that, we have our total here. So P percent of B equals A. Remember, B is our total. That's our 38.5. Our percent is 30%. And this gives me our part. Okay, the part that we are saving. When I multiply here, I get 11.55. Keep in mind though that $11.55 is the part that's 30% off. That's not our total right now. We want the sale price, which is our original price, minus that part they took off. We subtract, this is called our discount. And when we subtract there, we get a total of $26.95. Check, does our answer make sense? If we'd have had $11.55 as our final answer, does that make sense? No, if we start off with $38.50 and it's on sale for 30% off, that's less than half. So we know we're still going to have to pay more than half. So it wouldn't make sense for $11.55 to be our final answer. The second way here would be to compare our percents. So if we start off with 100% of the shirt, the entire amount of the shirt, and we have 30% off, we can take that 30% away and figure out what percentage of the shirt we are paying for. If we're not paying for 30%, then we're paying for 70%. And now I can figure out what number or what amount is 70% of my total cost. So I can take 70% of means times my base, my original amount, and get part. And when I do this, I get right to $26.95. So 2 ways of thinking about this. We can either figure out how much money we're saving, how much money we're not paying, and then subtract it. So find our percent or our amount and then subtract our amounts. Or we can figure out what percent we are paying and figure out what amount that is. So we can either subtract our percents and then find our part, or find our part and then subtract it from the total. Does not matter. Both ways we get to the same spot, so it all just depends on which one makes more sense to you. Now, feel free to pause here and give this a try. A family sells a car to a dealership for 60% less than they paid for it. They paid $9,000 for the car. For what price did they sell the car? And again, we can do this one of 2 ways. We can think about it in terms of dollar amounts. So we know that their percent is 60% of the amount they paid, their total, and that's going to give us the part that they're not making because it's 60% less than they paid for it. So this will give us how much that 60% is. When I multiply here, remember sometimes it's helpful to put these in as decimals. So 60% is going to be 0.6 times 9,000 when we're multiplying, which here is going to give me $5,400. And that's my part, the part that they're not getting. 60% less than they paid for it. So now we're going to take how much they paid for it and take our part less than that. So they're going to sell the car for $3,600. Okay, the part that they're not getting is this 54% or $5,400. Sorry. So we take that away from our original amount of $9,000 and get $3,600. The second way we can think about this is originally they paid for 100%. Whatever their total was, that's 100%. Starts off with the whole thing. Now it's 60% less than that original amount. So we can subtract as a percent 60%. And we have 40%. And this percent right here is the percent that they are selling it for. 60% less than what they paid for it, and they paid 100% of what they paid, what they started with. So we can say 40% of our total is the part that we're looking for. And here it takes me right to $3,600. So again, it does not matter which way you use because these are both equivalent. And I'll stop here and finish this section in a second video.